Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jade. A lot of you guys have been commenting saying you're a bit stuck or lost in Core Keeper already. You're not too sure what boss you should be going for first, or even how to find them or fight them. So today's guide is covering very basic stuff, but it is going to give you the heads up on all of the first 4 traders that you'll find, or merchants, and the first 5 bosses, which sounds like a lot and being huge spoiler territory, but honestly this is when the game really begins, because there's so many other creatures that you're going to have to take on. So if you don't know where to find Asios, if you're having trouble taking on Gorm, or whether or not it's worth killing the Hive Mother, hopefully this video is going to help you out today. If you do find it useful, leave a like and let's go. Okay, something really obvious, but anytime you get enough resources to craft something new from the crafting station, and it is a crafting station itself, go ahead and do it. It's pretty basic 101 for crafting survival games, but it's imperative that you do make sure you try and get everything that you can find in either the wood bench and then obviously the copper, tin and iron. In the dirt biome around you and some of the clay areas, you're going to find plenty of copper and maybe smaller deposits of tin in the clay. Iron is usually found only in the stone areas or the forgotten ruins. Gold can be found in most of them biomes, but maybe a little bit more in the forgotten ruin zones. And lastly, Scarlet can be found in the Asios wilderness. That should be enough to know where you're going for some of these ores, which are going to be vital in progression and unlocking new crafting stations as well as automation. Every world's procedurally generated, so it might be in a different direction that you're seeing here, but that's general consensus. And make sure you speak to the core, as it will give you tips on what to go and do first. So phase 1, taking care of Glurch, the easiest and closest boss you'll find. He's a slime. As long as you don't hit the slimes or get too close, they'll actually just bounce on the spot, giving you time to prep the area. Most cases with a lot of slime bosses, you want to remove a lot of the slime because obviously the debuffs it might give you. In this case, the slime only slows you down, and you can wear equipment like I've got here, which you can craft easily as part of the early crafting gear. Although I found mine as drops. Otherwise, if you're lucky enough to have found any kind of accessory that gives you a speed boost, or the feather which gives you a speed dash, that's always advisable as well. Otherwise, again, clear out a lot of the slime around, clear out any of the spiky slimes, and make sure you've eaten meals with the bomb peppers, as they'll give you a speed boost as well. Now you can use him to his advantage by clearing out some of the area around, and do be warned though, at some point once he gets about 80% of his health, he's going to go turbo and do more damage. But it's a relatively easy boss fight. I've already done an in-depth guide on what kind of drops you can get from him if you want to carry on farming. Just like the rest of the slime bosses, and in fact lots of the bosses, you can go ahead and basically redo them over and over again to get unique drops. You can get mini slime pets from defeating slime bosses, although it is a percentage chance, but they will help out in boss fights and a lot more. But that's for the other videos, so go and check them out. Today it's all just about how to progress and some of the stuff that people are getting stuck on. So you've got the trader there. Once you take home the summoning item that's inside the chest, the slime jar, place it in an adequate room, then you can get the trader to move in. This is a crucial part of progression, and I think some players might be missing this. Remember, rooms can't be any bigger than 8 by 8 squares, and they must have a torch and a bed in it. You don't even really need the flooring either, that was just a little touch from me. Go off screen or come back in a second and he should spawn inside. The other trader you're seeing there is the seasonal event one, that you can have just by crafting the calendar item. You got a special stone, and you get one of these from the first of 3 major bosses, and you put it simply in the statue that it comes from. Again, something I think people are maybe missing out on. Put the stone in here, unlocks ways to go and find the next bosses, as well as some other unique items. If you go ahead and use these scanners, it will show you where Gorm the Devourer is, as well as Magalus the Corrupted. In the early days, where maybe some resources are hard to come by, it's maybe not worth actually crafting the Gorm one, as he's pretty easy to find, but definitely craft the Magalus one. And also, if you've now defeated that boss, you can go and talk to the core again. Go and click on the core, and it'll give you a hint about what direction to go for the next one. Also, always double check with traders after a while, because they'll have new items to sell you, especially the first one, the bearded one. You'll unlock basically the chance to buy iron ore and more from him as you progress. And it's well worth buying your first pet if you haven't managed to dig one up or find one in some pots. 375 coins, quite expensive, but probably worth it if you haven't found a pet yet. Just simply put it in an incubator and 30 minutes later you'll have your first pet. He sells Ember Tail, which does fire damage against enemies with its projectile shot. And before we move on, I will say this, you need summoning items to face off against the bosses again, so you won't be able to buy them until you find the next trader. So moving on to Gorm, pretty much you need to just go in one direction and try and go very solidly in that one direction. Eventually you'll hit this massive ring of slime that's pretty much going around the whole of the core. This is the path and the trail of Gorm, and he obliterates anything in his path. So utilising the same kind of build set that you already took with you using against Glurch, definitely bring it here this time too. Range is going to be the best way to go, but I would also highlight and make sure you bring enough of traps. They can be the most basic ones, and effectively if you have about 30 of them, they should just about do enough damage to make Gorm stop. That's right, you're not going to be going around this big circle the whole time trying to kit him, as he's too fast for you sometimes. Obviously if you haven't managed to craft yourself some of the raincoat gear or have anything that's going to give you a speed boost. So if you do come across him, you can move out of the way and start clearing out all the slime and putting down your traps. It's not 100% necessary. If you have got, like I said, the feather in your accessory slot, you should be able to dash forward and keep just about on him, firing with some sort of ranged weapon enough that it will stop him. But at a certain point, once he gets enough health lost, he'll basically do circles and pretty much stop going in these big massive arc and try and take you down. He will pretty much make an arena space for you to fight him, so unless you got really unlucky and get stuck against the wall, you should hopefully be able to avoid him. But if you do get hit right in the middle of his path, it is pretty much almost game over. But again, relatively easy if you've got the raincoat gear, awesome speed, and obviously just making sure you're using ranged. Like melee, yeah, for sure, you can get behind and try and hit him in his tail. He does go turbo once again, just like all bosses pretty much, and he'll do more stronger attacks or faster attacks. But otherwise, he's gone again. You're more likely to actually die from other creatures getting involved. That's another thing to look out for. Also, make sure you clear out any loot and you never build anything within this circle. Gorm will literally destroy anything in its path, including any chests, and you will lose all your loot inside. Especially useful when you go to farm him later. When it comes to farming him, you will basically go running around the circle and eventually you will discover a place that very much looks like it is maybe branching off or is much bigger than just the regular ring. This will have the summoning area where you can put the idol down if you want to take on Gorm multiple times. But what we're really here for is Gorm's statue, as that's what we're going to need now to go ahead and put in his statue to reveal more items, as well as the core idol, and that's what we're going to use for the next trader. Same deal as before, make a suitable room, place the core idol down, and the travelling merchant will appear. This is where you can go and buy the summoning items to take on the first two bosses needed for progression, as well as the Hive Mother boss. You'll notice there's no actual idol for Malagas, so we'll get to that in a minute. But the giant slime summoning idol you place down on any of the special marked circles where you encounter slime bosses, and it will bring that particular slime. There's at least 3 more slime bosses that you can encounter, and a special one with a crossover with Terraria. So place Gorm's statue inside and it will light up some new weapons that you can buy, but also more importantly the recall core. These will basically teleport you back home to the recall in front of the core anytime you use them. They'll cost some ancient gems and stuff to craft, and you do it at the statue. Always have 4 or 5 of these in your inventory and always try and keep them in your hotbar. So as said, you can save some resources by not bothering with the Gorm Devourer scanner because it's fairly easy to find, you just need to go in one direction. But Malagas, absolutely make sure you go ahead and craft it, as it can be really tough to find them inside the pretty much forgotten ruins. Then just check your map and you'll find him. Slight change from previous early access version, he's now situated inside a giant maze, whereas previously it'd been like just a small arena that you could find relatively easy. So you will need to be properly equipped, prepared with lots of decent food, as it can be quite a challenge to get into. You won't be able to destroy the walls at this stage, although you might not even be able to until much later when you get better digging gear, so you will have to pretty much find the entrance. It can be tough, and I lucked out, I found this actual red drill, which is super OP at this stage. So you definitely want to be having the best kind of tools you've got. This is obviously where you can find lots of iron in the Forgotten Ruins and the stone biome, so you do want to make sure you get enough iron first, maybe get yourself a proper pickaxe and then come and hunt Malagas down. The maze, even before you get to him, will be filled with cavelins as well as shamans and they can do a huge amount of damage if they hit you with the fire attack or they simply swarm you. So again, range is pretty good. Again, you could also use spike traps to lure them down the tight corridors. Whatever way, just don't get stuck on a table. Also do make sure you bring some bridges or some ground cover, as you might need to plug some gaps to get through the maze. Now, I'm calling it a maze. It's not actually a proper maze, it's more just a mazy dungeon. There are actual proper mazes in the game, so I guess I should stop saying that. Eventually you will make it to the main room. I highly recommend you clear out every single pillar inside here and any of the furniture or any of the kind of pots. Malagus is pretty tough. He will fire lots of fireballs, he'll make places set on fire, and you have to move around basically trying to dodge him in his first phase. If you try leaving the arena, he can sometimes still set off his fire attacks and can still kill you, and obviously it will mean that his health starts regenerating if you go too far too. But hold up, where is he? How have I not shown how to summon him? Well, this is where you're going to need some of the crystal shards that hopefully you've been picking up from either the pots or killing some of the cavelins. Again, this is where it's not maybe super clear or maybe that obvious how to craft them, but basically have them in your hotbar and then press the use button and it will craft a crystal skull. It costs 3 to do so, and obviously you can make more. You don't really have that many more uses for this until later. It's probably worth crafting a few of them, see if you can farm him straight away. Do make sure you put a bed down just outside the arena so you can spawn back quickly. If you're quick enough, he might not regain all of his health, especially if you're close enough with the bed, but you don't want it to be too close that it can actually be damaged. Now you can see I didn't take my own advice and clear out everything. In one way it can be good because it helps avoid his direct fireballs, but as you can see the flames that he's actually raising from the ground, it makes it even harder to dodge out them sometimes. He'll teleport around, but he's not actually too tough here. Again, ranged and mage or warlock is always good using the summons. I would say melee is definitely going to have a hard time, especially with his second phase, which happens when he's lost all of his health here. But utilising your speed, again, lots of the bomb peppers eating, and as you can see, yeah, he doesn't really go turbo. It's pretty much seeming like he's dead, but then he rises again and now he's in his melee phase. He's pretty much going to rush you. So it's a bit easier to avoid him again as long as you've got like the feather or maybe something speedy like the speed ring. If you fail to kill him, i.e. you die here, he will revert back to his first phase and you have to start basically the boss fight over again. As said, a lot of the pets can do damage against bosses. If you have been farming Glurch, you've got a chance of getting Junior Orange Slime pet. This is good because it will give a bit more attack damage against bosses, although not much, around 8%. And when your slime hits the enemy, it will slow it down a little bit, so that could be actually really good for this boss fight. Do make sure you check out my full guide on all the pets to see which ones are better for what stages. But keep healing. I was using my Warlock class pretty much for this whole playthrough, so I was really lucking out here because my bats were doing the work, albeit a bit slowly, and then I was helping out a little bit with more magic as I dodged around. And that's it. With him defeated, you will now be able to go venturing beyond the boundary wall that you might have come running into, which is just usually a bit further than Malagus. You don't need to defeat the Hive Mother for the wall to actually disappear, and then this is a big change from early access. It used to be the other way round. You had to defeat the Hive Mother to gain access, and Malagus was kind of like a side boss. Also, if you're looking for the next upgrade in terms of armour from the Apprentice set, then Malagus does have more chance of dropping the Soaring armour sets, as well as the Shaman Skull. I farmed him a bunch of times and got even more gear. Especially good was the Rift Lens, which allows you to teleport a short distance. This is absolutely OP, so make sure if you can, try and either farm this guy or the Hive Mother, both have a chance of dropping it. So you go ahead and place the Corrupted Stone and it unlocks again a new weapon, the Blue Leather Tome, which is good for mage users, and the Hologram Pod, which is basically another trader that will then allow you to buy more scanners to find lots of the optional bosses and the next set that you have to find. These are going to cost obviously a lot of ancient gemstones and mechanical parts, so never sell them, always keep some handy. The first 3 you come across, they're the ones for the story. The second box are pretty much all optional bosses, and the third ones are how you summon some of them bosses. And again, make sure you go and click on the actual core, as this might need to be done to go ahead and make the wall boundary disappear. But I do believe as long as you go and touch it, it should disappear anyway. It will again, as always, point the direction to the next boss. So not the Hive Mother, like I said, that's an optional boss. Instead, it should give you the directions for Asios and pretty much the jungle biome, the Asios Wilderness. This is why I've included this run of bosses in lots of starter guides, because now you really see that all the other bosses are the ones that are part of the main story and for completion of the game. So it's not needed, but I am going to just briefly talk about the Hive Mother. You'll find it situated in the lava zone, and don't forget you're able to craft the actual locator or the scanner for it. Clear out any of the larvae and grubs around, and then clear out a space where you just want to be having a good amount that you can move back and forth around 2 or 3 squares. So you will need a shovel for this that can break through the dirt. I've only got one line here, but it's definitely best advice to do 2 or 3 and basically make it so that no other creatures would be able to get you. So make it that you're closed in, and then you can go ahead and start firing with a ranged character or a magic or mage warlock, and this is the best way to take care of the hive. You can run around killing it, and you can clear out all of the acid slime using obviously a hoe, but it does summon lots of the larvae, and I think this is the best way to do it. Obviously, like I said though, make sure you clear out another few squares behind you so you've got more chance to avoid the shots that it's firing. This is why it's really important you do bring a hoe, and probably a more upgraded one like the iron one if you can, as it gives it bigger spaces. You don't have to panic about any of the larvae, they will not be able to hit you across the gap. You just keep focusing on shooting the hive, and then when you need to, clear out the acid slime and keep hitting it. It does go into turbo mode, and it means it's going to fire more of the actual acid, and a lot of the larvae will get in the way. So even better tip is to make sure you put lots of spikes just on the lip where they are, and that should help clear them out so you can get some proper shots in on the hive mother. Any pets that do melee damage or passive aren't really good here. The Ember Tail will be good because obviously it does fire the fire projectile. Also, don't go too far off the screen. You need to have the Hive Mother pretty much in view, otherwise it will start generating its health again, or you won't necessarily do as much damage. So I was finding it tough dodging all of the acid projectiles and then obviously trying to get some hits in, but luckily, like I said, my bats were doing the job, so I was using the Summoner build to good effect. Having that rift lens that I got from Magalus really helped here as well, because it meant I could just teleport across the gap when I needed to. You'll get a bunch of carapace or grub armor, or a chance of it dropping at least, which can be good if you are trying to explore more of the hive and lava areas. But again, it's an extra here, it's not needed for progression. Same thing as always as well, if you want to fight them again and keep farming, bring the hive summoning idol that you've managed to buy from the wandering trader and place it down on the circle. And just to show how tough it is if you were trying to take it on just running around. Again, you could put a lot of spikes down. I don't think the acid will destroy them, but maybe some of the other creatures hitting might, but they will get caught in it as well. So that's another option, or making sure that you've put some sort of pillars, some walls to go around to dodge some of these enemies. But overall, the big egg sacs will keep hatching, and you'll also have more and more of the larvae chasing you. And if they do hit you, they're pretty strong at this stage, especially the exploding ones here. This is why it's better to just prep, put a line, and that way you're going to be more safer and just have to worry about dodging the acid. Malagus should have a waystone close by to that big dungeon, so you can always teleport there much quicker. Glurch obviously did have, hopefully you found that when you discovered him in the beginning, but Gorm doesn't, and Hive Mother is meant to, but I dug around everywhere and I couldn't find one close enough. So I did get lucky with Asios. I hadn't actually bothered with the scanner to find him. I was just exploring the Asios wilderness, and yeah, with the general direction tips from the core, and I come across the arena. Otherwise, it is a bit of a pain getting the feathers needed. You'll basically see them, they're blue and yellow. You'll find a lot in the actual arena of Asios itself. Otherwise, you've got to explore a lot of the wilderness, looking for the blue and yellow feathers and using a hoe to dig them. The summoning item, the shimmering egg, is pretty expensive to make. Well, maybe not that expensive, but a lot. Pretty much 10 of every ingot. 10 copper, tin, iron, as well as the scarlet that you find in the Asios biome. That's what you'll be getting mostly here. That's the reason you're looking for scarlet, and that helps you set up all your automation and things like sprinklers, as well as arms and more. Plus 5 gold bars and some ancient gemstones. Then just place it down in his arena and he will come forth. He'll fire these thunder charges at you, and they can be relatively okay to dodge, but you just got to make sure you're keeping enough distance, because close up, if they do hit you at once, you're pretty much going to be dead in one go. Asios will heal from the giant crystals you can see on the ground if he gets close enough at various different stages. So again, range is pretty good, melee's okay, but you're going to need something you can fast move out the way in case he does do the thunder strike attacks. You can see the beam of light there, that won't hurt you, so don't panic. Just make sure though you are either destroying it with a pickaxe. The iron I think is okay, you don't necessarily need the scarlet one. It will take 2 or 3 hits and it will stop him from pretty much using it to heal, but more will spawn. A good idea is to lay up the gaps that you can see with lots of bridges or flooring, as he will sometimes spawn just outside it and heal in that way too. And if you're lucky enough to have taken on maybe the poison slime Ivy, which is in the same area or biome, the Asios Wilderness, then the pet from that is actually really good, as it reduces the enemy's healing from happening by 75%. So I'm going to show in a much more detailed video talking about all the drops that you get from Asios, and yeah, you'll see how OP it is and how you can just pretty much keep hitting him even if he is trying to heal from some of the crystals. Relatively, Asios is probably the easiest, and it does look like the devs recognise this, as they are going to be updating it in the future. But with the Swift Feather or the Rift Lens, it's very easy to dodge out the way a lot of the lightning strikes. And if you get hit by just 1 or 2 of them, it's okay. It's only when he does these circle attack of them that come in and out, that's the ones that if you're too close using melee builds, you'll have a hard time surviving. And there is also a Easter variant of this one, and there's also a Halloween version of the Hive Mother that's well worth farming and taking on. So I have been kind of underpowered all throughout this playthrough, as I've been kind of rushing to get to the end content, and I've been utilising this Warlock class almost relentlessly, but I reckon if you've got a good ranged class, it's probably going to be better here. So the reason we're killing this guy is because it is part of progression, and you also get your first soul power by defeating him. And maybe more importantly for some, he's going to unlock the next trader, which is the Fisherman. He'll drop something called a bucket of chum, and this is what you again place in a room, and the Fisher Trader will spawn. And that's pretty much where I'm going to leave you today. Hopefully that helps you with progression, understanding what you should be doing. Now if you've got the hologram trader up and running as well, it should be easy to check out where to go next with some of them bosses. Just remember that first box are the ones part of the story, the second box are the optional bosses. And the core will mention also what you should be doing next, which is pretty much go and find the sunken sea. All the next phase will be coming in another video, but that will be in the future. So I hope this helped you. If it has, leave a like. I'll see you RATBAGGERS for more soon.